The mug clicked against the counter, just a little too hard. The sound wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to echo through the small apartment. Coffee sloshed over the rim, running down my knuckles in a thin, hot line. I didn't flinch. I just watched it bead against my skin, dark and bitter, the way mornings had started to taste lately. The reflection in the kitchen window showed two people. One was me, still in my work shirt, collar wrinkled, jaw tight. The other wasn't real yet. Not until that night. Backbeat. It's strange what reflections tell you before people do. That morning had been like any other. I'd woken up first, like always. Habit. Years of early shifts had wired my body to beat the alarm by 10 minutes. The apartment was still dim, light leaking through the blinds in thin lines that striped the floor. I could hear the soft hum of the fridge, the city outside, still half asleep. She was curled up on her side, facing away from me, hair spilling over the pillow. I remember thinking she looked peaceful, the kind of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. Her name's Lena, 29, graphic designer, sharp wit, soft voice. When we met 3 years ago, she was the kind of person who turned silence into comfort. Not anymore. Lately, the silence had weight. It started small. Missed texts, late replies. I lost track of time. The usual phrases people learn when honesty becomes too heavy to lift. And then came him, Ethan. She mentioned him once in passing. A co-worker who helps with layout stuff. I didn't think much of it. I've been in relationships before. I know how paranoia eats good people from the inside. So I ignored the little buzz in my chest when I heard his name. But over the next few weeks, his name stuck around like lint you can't shake off. I'm heading out. Ethan needs help with the color correction. Ethan found this amazing tie spot near the office. Ethan says the new client is impossible. Every time she said his name, her tone changed, lighter, like she'd found a version of herself I hadn't seen in months. I told myself it was fine. People have friends. You can't own someone's laughter. Still, something about it felt off. One Thursday night, I got home late from a delivery route that ran longer than planned. I do freelance logistics, small contracts, local shipments. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. That night, I was supposed to get off by 8. Traffic pushed it past 10. When I walked in, the apartment lights were low, a single lamp on the desk. The rest was dark. Lena's laptop screen glowed against the far wall. She jumped when I opened the door. "Jesus, Nate," she said, pressing a hand to her chest. "You scared me." "Didn't mean to." I set my bag down quietly. "You working late again?" "Yeah," she said quickly, almost rehearsed. "Deadline for the client. Ethan and I are trying to—" She stopped, like she'd just realized the name slipped out. "Ethan?" Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. "He's online too. We're reviewing proofs." I nodded, but something about her laptop angle caught my eye. The reflection on the screen, a video window minimized in the corner, his face. "Want me to order dinner?" I asked, keeping my tone level. She shook her head. "Already ate." That was new. Lena never ate without me. Not out of obligation. It was our thing. We'd talk about our days over takeout containers and cheap wine, our version of winding down. But that night, her wine glass was already half empty, condensation running down its side. Over the next few weeks, the distance grew louder. She started going out on weekends for client meetups. She came home later, smelling like city air and cologne that wasn't mine. Something expensive, citrus, and smoke. When I asked about it, she smiled that polite kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Ethan uses way too much cologne, I keep telling him." The word Ethan had become furniture in our home, always there, even when I tried not to notice. The first real fracture came one Friday night. She'd said she'd be home by 9. I'd cooked, Actual food, not takeout. Pasta, garlic bread, even opened a bottle of red she liked. 9 came and went. By 10:30, the food had gone cold. I texted her once, then twice. No reply. At 11:40, the lock finally turned. She stepped in, laughing softly at something on her phone, until she saw me sitting at the table. "Oh, you're still up." "I made dinner." She froze for half a beat, then smiled like she was trying to smooth over a wrinkle. "You didn't have to. I grabbed something with the team." "The team?" "Yeah, just everyone. Post-deadline thing." I didn't ask the next question. Who drove her home? I didn't need to. Her reflection in the hallway mirror was enough. Her hair was windblown, and the strap of her dress had a crease like someone's hand had brushed it. I cleaned the table while she showered. The sound of running water drowned out my thoughts, but not the smell. Faint cologne again, citrus and smoke. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was connecting dots that weren't there. So the next day, I tried to prove myself wrong. I texted her mid-morning. "Want to grab brunch?" No answer. I checked her social feed, private now. She used to post sketches, coffee photos, design inspo, but recently she'd gone quiet. Then I saw a tagged photo from someone in her office. A group shot, smiles, drinks. The caption read, "Friday night with the dream team." And there he was, Ethan, arm resting just behind her chair. Close, but not touching. Close enough that I noticed. I zoomed in on her expression. She wasn't smiling at the camera. She was smiling at him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window watching. The city lights blur through drizzle. The kind of soft rain that makes everything reflective. Car hoods, puddles, glass. Our apartment building faced another one across the street. Windows stacked like little lives on display. Some open, some dark. At one point, I saw a couple arguing in one of the opposite apartments, the woman pacing, the man rubbing his face. It struck me how similar they looked to us. I wondered if someone ever watched our window. Would they be able to tell when things changed? 2 nights later, I got my answer. It was raining harder that evening. I'd come home early. Truck maintenance got canceled, so I took the chance to surprise her. I grabbed a bottle of that cheap red we both liked and stopped by the bakery for her favorite lemon tart. When I opened the door, the apartment was dark, except for the living room. The blinds weren't drawn. The rain outside turned the glass into a sheet of rippling silver. And in that reflection, faint but clear, I saw 2 shapes, Lena and someone taller, closer. Her hand was on his chest, his on her waist. The movement was slow, uncertain, like they hadn't planned to get caught in their own mirror. My stomach went cold. I didn't step inside right away. I just stood in the doorway, bottle in hand, watching through their reflection as if it were someone else's life. The sound of laughter from the TV mixed with the rain, and for a moment, I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding, that maybe she was just standing near him, that the glass distorted things. But then she tilted her head up, and their mouths met in the reflection. That was when the bottle slipped from my hand. The cork hit the floor first. Then the glass. The sound snapped them apart. Lena spun around, eyes wide. The guy turned too. Ethan. I recognized him from the office photos. "Nate," she started. I didn't say a word. I just stared at them, rain still streaking down the window behind them, blurring their outlines like a cruel painter smudging the truth. The smell of spilled wine hit me next. Sharp, sweet, metallic. It reminded me of the coffee from that morning. Hot, bitter, honest. Ethan took a step back, hands up. "Man, I should go." "You think?" I said quietly. My voice sounded calm, detached, like it belonged to someone else. He grabbed his jacket, mumbling something I didn't catch, and brushed past me. The door closed behind him with a soft click. For a moment, all I could hear was the rain. Lena stood there shivering. "Nate, it's not what you think." "Don't," I said. She took a step closer, then stopped. "Please, let me explain." I stared at the reflection in the window again. Two figures, one standing, one breaking. "It's been going on how long?" Silence. "That's what I thought." Her lip trembled, but no sound came out. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a towel, and started mopping up the spilled wine. My hands were shaking, but the motion kept me from falling apart. She followed me, still talking. It just happened. We were working late, and I was lonely, and what? I said, looking up. "You decided to see if the reflection would lie for you?" Her eyes filled. "You don't understand. You've been so distant lately, always working, always tired." I let out a hollow laugh. "So that's the story? I didn't smile enough, so you found someone who did?" She didn't answer. I slept on the couch that night. The sound of the rain didn't stop till dawn. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their reflection again, overlaid on every surface. The window, the mirror, even the TV screen. You can't unsee something like that. The next morning, she left early. I heard drawers opening, zippers closing. She didn't wake me, didn't try. When I sat up, the apartment was quiet again. Her coffee mug was still on the counter, lipstick smudge on the rim, cold to the touch. The reflection in the window showed just one person this time. And for the first time, it looked like the truth. The first morning without her felt like static. Not silence, just this low, invisible noise that filled the space between everything. The refrigerator hum, the ticking wall clock. Even the sound of my own breathing seemed too loud. The couch still smelled like her shampoo, lavender, and something faintly chemical from the dye she used. I sat there longer than I should have, staring at the dent her pillow left in the cushion. She hadn't said goodbye. No note. Just absence. The kind that doesn't slam a door. It just forgets to close it. Around 8, I made coffee. Out of habit, I filled 2 mugs. Halfway through pouring, I stopped. The second mug steamed for a moment, then cooled. It sat on the counter all day. I'd never realized how much of a person's presence is made up of small noises. The hairdryer, the keys dropping in a bowl, the faint sound of someone humming in another room. Now, all that was gone. Even the apartment itself felt like it was holding its breath. When you've been betrayed, time doesn't move normally. It loops. I kept replaying that moment by the window. The reflection, the rain, the bottle slipping. Every time I tried to edit it, to find some version where I'd misunderstood what I saw. But memory doesn't care about mercy. By Sunday, she texted, "Can we talk, please?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "About what?" "Everything. I owe you that much." She didn't owe me a conversation. She owed me honesty when it would have mattered. But I agreed anyway. Not because I wanted closure, because I wanted to see if she'd still lie when there was nothing left to gain. We met at a small cafe near her office. Neutral ground. It used to be our cafe. I didn't realize that until I saw the same chipped table we'd once carved our initials into with a key. She arrived late. She always did. When she walked in, she looked smaller. Not physically, just worn down, like the edges had been rubbed off her confidence. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around her coffee cup like she needed the warmth to keep from shaking. "Nate," she started. "I'm sorry." I nodded. I didn't say it was okay. I didn't mean for it to happen. You don't trip and fall into someone's arms, Lena. Her eyes flicked up, watery. I know. She talked for nearly 20 minutes about loneliness, pressure, how things between us had shifted. I listened, but most of the words sounded like filler, like someone buying time. Then she said, "He didn't mean to hurt you either." That line stuck in my throat. "He?" I repeated. She nodded. "Ethan." I leaned back. "You still seeing him?" She hesitated. "We're talking. I just need space to figure things out." I let out a small laugh. It wasn't bitter. It was disbelief at how people can burn down a home and then call the ashes space. When we left the cafe, she hugged me. I didn't hug her back. Her hair brushed my chin, and for a moment, I caught that same lavender scent, the one I used to find comforting. Now it felt synthetic, manufactured. She whispered, "I'll always care about you." I stepped back. "That's not the same thing." She didn't argue. That night, I boxed up her things. At first, I thought I'd do it angrily, throw everything into bags and be done with it. But instead, I found myself moving slow, deliberate, one drawer at a time. Her sketchbook, the sweater she'd stolen from me 2 winters ago, the Polaroid from our first trip together, her smiling, hair caught in wind, my arm awkwardly around her shoulders. Each item felt like a weight I couldn't quite set down. By midnight, the apartment was cleaner than it had been in months, emptier too. I left the boxes by the door. At some point, I realized I hadn't turned on any lights, just the faint glow from the city seeping through the window. That same window. The reflection showed only me again. But I couldn't stop staring, as if another shape might reappear any second. 2 weeks passed. She moved out officially, signed off on the lease transfer, dropped her key in the mail slot. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't, because grief has stages and betrayal has reruns. The first rerun came in the form of a text. Not from her, from Ethan. "Hey man, I didn't want to make things worse. I just wanted to say sorry." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. "You knew she was taken." He replied fast. "We didn't plan it. It just happened. I didn't think she'd leave you." I didn't answer. I deleted the thread. Some apologies aren't bridges. They're landmines. Around that time, my friends started noticing. "You look like hell," my coworker Marcus said one morning. "Thanks," I muttered. He poured coffee into his thermos and leaned against the counter. "You ever think about talking to someone? Therapist, maybe?" "I'm fine." Yeah, that's what every guy says before they start listening to sad playlists at 2 a.m. I smirked, but he wasn't wrong. Nights had become the hardest part. That's when the apartment felt like it had too much air in it, every breath echoing back. I'd sit on the couch, TV flickering, pretending the light counted as company. Sometimes, I'd catch myself scrolling through her old texts, tiny fragments of a version of her that had existed once, the one who'd send me doodles of us, or random photos of cloud shapes. It's unsettling how quickly someone can go from your everyday sound to pure static. 3 weeks after the breakup, I saw her again. It was unplanned. I'd gone to drop off a delivery downtown, small warehouse district near the river. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw her across the street. She was with him. They weren't holding hands, but the way they walked, close, shoulders brushing, said everything. They looked like two people building a new story out of someone else's ending. She didn't see me. I didn't honk, didn't call her name. I just watched the light change, then drove away. That night, something in me shifted. Not anger. Not anymore. Something quieter. Acceptance, maybe. Or exhaustion pretending to be peace. I opened my laptop for the first time in weeks and started clearing old folders. Photos, videos, shared playlists. Then I found one file I didn't remember. A folder inside a backup drive. It was labeled Window Ref. At first, I thought it was some design file of hers. Maybe from work. When I opened it, I saw images, screenshots from her webcam. Dozens of them. Some showed her sketching, typing, drinking coffee, but a few were from that night, the night I walked in. My breath caught. The system had auto-backed up the camera feed from her laptop, something she must have set up during one of her design live streams. It had recorded everything up to the moment I entered the room. There it was, the reflection, clearer than I remembered, and in it, something small but different, a detail I hadn't noticed before. Her eyes. They weren't closed when he kissed her. She was looking at the reflection, at herself, at me, without knowing I was there yet. That image stuck with me, not as proof of betrayal, but as evidence of how far apart we'd already been before that night. She'd already left, long before she packed a box. I started journaling after that, something Marcus had suggested when I kept showing up to work tired and distracted. He said, "Write it down. Get it out somewhere it can't echo." So I did. Every night, I'd sit by that same window and write one paragraph. Not about her, about what the day looked like without her in it. The first week, it was mostly bitterness. By the third, it was mostly silence. But in that silence, something else started to grow. Clarity. One evening, maybe a month later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, it's Lena." I stared at it for a minute before replying. "What do you need?" "I wanted to see you. Just talk." I hesitated, then typed, "Tomorrow. Same cafe." She showed up right on time this time. She looked different, not happier, not sadder, just older, like someone who'd lived through her own reflection. We sat outside. Windy day, napkins fluttering across the table. She spoke first. "He's gone." I didn't ask who he was. She continued, "I thought I loved him, I really did. But he made me feel invisible after a while, like I was just—" "Something reflected," I said quietly. She blinked. "Yeah, something reflected." She tried to reach across the table, but I pulled back slightly, not out of anger. Instinct. "I don't want to make this about regret," she said. "I just needed to tell you that I know I broke something in you, and I'm sorry." I nodded. "You did, but I'm learning to rebuild." For the first time in months, the words didn't feel performative. She smiled faintly. "You always were the strong one." Maybe. Or maybe I just learned how to look at the glass differently. After she left, I stayed seated for a while. The cafe window reflected my face again. Faint, distorted by light. But for the first time, I didn't see two people there. Just one, still standing. That night, I got home to find the city glowing with soft rain again, almost poetic, like the world circling back, offering a mirror just to test if I'd still flinch. I didn't. I turned off the lights, looked at the window. My reflection blinked back. Tired, human, unbroken. And in the distance, thunder rolled. You learn a lot about yourself when you start living alone again. Not the big things, the small, invisible mechanics of your life that only appear in the quiet. The sound your shoes make when you drop them in the wrong spot. The way the fridge light flickers like it's thinking about quitting. The sudden awareness that there's no one left to hear you say goodnight. It's been 3 months since that second cafe meeting. 3 months since Lena walked away for good. I thought a closure would feel clean. It doesn't. It's more like a wound that scabs unevenly. Better one week, raw the next. Work helped in a way. Deliveries gave me routine. You can't think too much about heartbreak when you're double-checking manifests and trying not to dent boxes that don't belong to you. Still, every route had a silence to it. I'd drive through back roads at dawn, headlights sweeping past storefronts, thinking about how many people are probably living out some version of my story. the kind where one person watches the other fade behind glass. I used to replay the reflection every night, but lately it had started to lose its edges. It's strange how memory blurs what pain sharpens. Her face had softened in my mind, less like betrayal, more like someone I once knew. Maybe that's healing, or maybe it's forgetting. I'm not sure there's much difference. One Thursday morning, Marcus caught me staring into my coffee again. "You still doing the window thing?" he asked. I looked up. "What window thing?" "You know." He gestured vaguely. "That poetic staring out at the city like a music video thing." I smirked. "Only on good days." He sat across from me. "You ever think about moving? Fresh start?" "Can't afford it." "Fair. But you could use some new air, man. That apartment's haunted." He didn't mean ghosts. He meant memories. And he wasn't wrong. That night, I stood by the same window again. Rain again. Because of course it was. It always rains when you're trying to convince yourself you've moved on. But something felt different this time. The glass didn't feel like a mirror anymore. More like a wall. Outside, across the street, the couple who used to argue had their lights off. For months, I'd half watched their life like it was a show with no ending. Tonight, the window was empty. Moved out, maybe. Gone quiet. It made me wonder what people see when they look at my window now. A guy alone, standing too still. Maybe they invent stories about me. The quiet neighbor with the sad eyes. Everyone becomes fiction in someone else's reflection. Around midnight, I got a text. Unknown number again. "Hey, this is Ethan." My stomach tightened. "I think you should know something." I almost deleted it right then. But curiosity, that stubborn little parasite, made me reply. "What now?" He sent a photo. Him and Lena, or what used to be him and Lena. Her expression was distant, tired. His caption said it all. She left. I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, just emptiness, like someone had turned off a show mid-episode and left the screen black. "Sorry," he added. "I thought you'd want to know." "I didn't," I typed back, then deleted it. Instead I wrote, "Take care of yourself." I hit send and set the phone face down. The next few weeks slipped by quietly. Spring edged in. The rain finally eased. The city smelled like wet concrete and fresh paint. People fixing what winter had cracked. I started running again. At first, it was just a block or two before my lungs protested. But the rhythm helped. The sound of my feet hitting pavement felt like punctuation. Steady, grounding. One morning, on my way back, I passed by a building I didn't recognize. Big glass facade, sunlight bouncing off it. Inside, people were working. Designers, maybe. And for a heartbeat, I saw someone with Lena's hair color. Her posture. I stopped walking. Watched. It wasn't her. Of course it wasn't. But that single second sent my chest twisting, because that's how memory works. Ambushes you in ordinary daylight. That night, I finally did something I'd been avoiding. I took down the photo frame still hanging by the kitchen doorway. It was the two of us at a lake. She'd been sketching on a notepad, sunlight on her face, me grinning like an idiot beside her. The glass over it had a faint crack from when I dropped it weeks ago. I looked at the reflection one last time. Our ghosted faces layered over the apartment behind me. Then I opened the frame, slid the photo out, and set it face down. Not out of anger, out of mercy. By early summer, something subtle had shifted. I wasn't counting the days since she left anymore. I was just living them. Still, there were reminders. The smell of her perfume drifting from someone on the subway. The specific shade of blue she used to paint her nails showing up on a stranger's hand. Little echoes, harmless now, but still haunting in their precision. One afternoon, I got home to find a letter wedged under my door. No return address. Inside, a single folded page. Lena's handwriting. Nate, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I'm writing because I finally understood something I didn't before. You didn't lose me because you stopped caring. I lost you because I stopped looking at the person I was becoming in your reflection. I was chasing a version of myself that didn't exist. I'm sorry for what I broke. I hope you find something worth rebuilding. No signature, just her name's initial, L. I read it twice, then I folded it back and placed it in the drawer with my journals. Not to keep her close, to keep myself honest about where I'd been. That weekend, Marcus convinced me to join a group trip, hiking of all things. Fresh air, real windows this time, thought he joked. We drove 3 hours north, into hills where the air smelled like pine and rain-cooled stone. The trail was long, steep, but quiet in the best way. At the top there was a lake, still glassy, mirroring the sky so clearly it looked endless. I stood at the edge, watching the reflection ripple as the wind passed. It hit me then. How much of my life had been about reflections, windows, screens, memories, always seeing life through glass instead of inside it. So I took off my shoes, stepped into the water, and let it reach my ankles. Cold, real, present. When I got home, I didn't look at the apartment window right away. Instead, I opened the balcony door and let air in. New air. Like Marcus said, the city was alive. Sirens, laughter, someone's music drifting from a block away. For the first time, I didn't see a reflection in the glass. I saw through it. That night, before bed, I wrote one final journal entry. Healing isn't about erasing reflections. It's about learning to walk past them without stopping. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and let the city hum carry me to sleep. Summer blurred into the kind of heat that makes even silence feel heavy. The city baked in sunlight, the streets shimmering like someone had laid sheets of glass over them. I'd stopped checking the weather. It didn't matter. Every day felt the same. Hot, slow, tired. But I was different. Not healed exactly, just more balanced. I'd stopped waiting for peace to arrive like a letter. Instead, I started building small routines that made the apartment mine again. I moved the couch, changed the curtains, replaced the chipped mugs. Little things, but they helped. When you rearrange space, you rearrange memory. By August, I was back on a steady schedule. Morning runs, deliveries, grocery store on Sundays. Sometimes I'd pass the bakery where I used to buy Lena her lemon tarts. At first, I'd cross the street to avoid it. Then one day, I didn't. I walked in, ordered coffee, and sat by the window. The same kind of window that used to betray me. Except now, it just showed sunlight, people, motion. No ghosts. That's the thing about reflections. They only haunt you if you keep standing still. One morning, as I was loading boxes into the truck, Marcus showed up with his usual grin and bad coffee. "Guess what?" he said, tossing me a can of something cold. "What?" "My cousin's opening a gallery downtown. Photography and mixed media. They need help with setup this weekend." "I'm not an art guy." "Yeah, well, you're also not a hermit anymore. You should come. Meet people. The good kind. The ones who actually talk instead of text." I hesitated. Crowds weren't my thing lately, but staying home wasn't either. "Fine," I said. One night. Saturday came. The gallery was an old renovated warehouse. Exposed brick, string lights, soft music playing from speakers hidden in corners. The crowd was mixed. Artists, locals, people who looked like they wore opinions as accessories. I stuck close to the back, nursing a drink and pretending to study a black and white photograph of an empty park bench. That's when someone spoke beside me. "Beautiful shot, isn't it?" I turned. She was tall, with short dark hair and paint-stained fingers. Yeah, I said. It's still. That's the point, she replied, smiling. Stillness makes you look harder. Her name was Maya. She was one of the featured photographers, the kind of person who talked with her hands, who saw stories in light and shadow. We ended up walking through the gallery together, trading quiet comments about the photos. No flirting, just ease. When the event wrapped up, she handed me a small flyer with her next exhibit date scribbled on it. Come if you want to see what stillness looks like in motion, she said. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't throw it away either. That night, walking back to my apartment, I realized something simple. I hadn't thought about Lena once all evening. Not when the music started, not when the lights hit glass, not even when I caught my reflection in a display window. For the first time in months, I looked at that mirrored version of myself and didn't see loss, just a man who'd survived it. Over the next few weeks, Maya and I kept running into each other. Coffee shops, bus stops, once even at the grocery store. At some point, coincidence started to feel like rhythm. She was different from anyone I'd known. She never asked about my past, but she listened like she could see it in the way I held silence. One evening, we sat by the riverfront, sharing takeout noodles straight from the carton. The sky was turning amber, and the water mirrored the city lights like a second skyline. Maya pointed to the surface. You ever notice reflections move even when you don't? I smiled. Yeah, I used to hate that. Why? Because it reminded me that I was stuck. She looked at me, eyes soft. Maybe it's just the world showing you how to keep going. That line stayed with me. Not because it was profound, but because it was true in a way that didn't hurt. Around that time, I decided to let go of one last thing, the window camera backup folder. It had sat untouched since the night I found it, full of still frames I didn't need to see again. I opened the laptop, selected the folder, and hovered over delete. But before I clicked, I opened one file at random, a grainy capture from weeks before everything fell apart. Lena was sitting at the desk, sketching, hair tied back, sunlight on her shoulders. She looked content, honest. That's the version I decided to remember. I deleted the rest. Maya's exhibit opened in September. I went. The gallery was smaller this time, intimate. Her photos were all about reflections, puddles, windows, polished metal. But every image had one thing in common. They were imperfect. Blurry, cracked, sometimes even distorted. When I asked her why, she said, because perfection doesn't tell the truth. Imperfections do. Later that night, when we stood outside, she asked, Do you ever take photos? Not really. You should. The way you look at things, you'd probably see what most people miss. I laughed. That's generous. It's not, she said. You see stories in silence. That's rare. Something about that line, stories in silence, made me think of the apartment window again, of how much had begun and ended there. One evening, I invited her over. We cooked pasta, simple, messy, with too much garlic. She leaned against the counter, laughing when I spilled sauce. It was easy, unguarded. After dinner, she walked to the window, tracing her finger along the glass. This view's something, she said. Yeah, I replied. It used to feel like a mirror. Now it's just a view. She looked at me for a moment, like she understood exactly what I meant. Then she said quietly, You ever notice? The glass never really changes. We do. That night, after she left, I stood there again. Same window, same rain starting to fall, gentle and rhythmic. Only this time, When I looked at my reflection, I didn't see pain looking back, just motion, something alive again. Days grew shorter, leaves began to change, and I realized I hadn't written in my journal for weeks. Not because I forgot, because I didn't need to. The silence that used to feel like punishment now felt like space. One afternoon, Marcus stopped by with his usual grin. "So," he said, eyeing the 2 coffee mugs on the counter. "New company?" I smirked. "Maybe." He laughed. "Took you long enough. Glad you finally opened the curtains." I looked toward the window. Sunlight was pouring in. No blinds, no shadows. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." That night, I sat by the window again. The city hummed below. Sirens, laughter, car horns, the living pulse of everything still happening. I thought about Lena, about Ethan, about every version of me that had existed in that reflection. They all felt distant now, like old photographs. Still there, but no longer alive. And maybe that's what closure really is. Not the absence of pain, just the presence of perspective. It's strange how life folds back into itself. You think endings are clean, final, decisive, but they're not. They echo in small moments months later when you least expect them. A certain song in a cafe, a smell in a crowd, a flash of a face that looks familiar from a distance. Sometimes those echoes hurt. Sometimes they remind you you're still here. By late autumn, the air turned crisp, sharp enough to make every breath feel deliberate. Leaves had burned into color, amber, rust, dark red, and the city looked almost new again. Maya and I had fallen into an easy rhythm. We weren't rushing anything. There were no labels, no grand declarations, just simple things. Shared walks, late-night calls, long silences that didn't need to be filled. One Sunday morning, she asked if I wanted to help her shoot photos near the old district, the one full of glass-fronted warehouses and faded murals. We spent the day wandering, her with her camera, me carrying her spare lens bag. She'd stop suddenly to capture puddles, reflections, rusted doors, little fragments of imperfection. Every time she clicked the shutter, she'd smile softly. "You see that?" she'd say. I'd nod, even when I didn't. Around sunset, we found a quiet corner cafe. The glass walls caught the light just right, doubling everything. 2 of us sitting across from each other, 2 cups steaming, 2 worlds colliding. Maya looked at the reflection and said, "You ever think about how fragile glass is?" "Every day," I said, half joking. She smiled. "Nah, glass isn't fragile. It's just honest. It shows exactly what's there, and it cracks when you lie to it." That hit harder than she knew. I didn't tell her the whole story that day, but I think she understood parts of it without words. Some people just see the things you can't say. That night, after I dropped her off, I walked home through the drizzle. When I reached my building, I stopped on the sidewalk, looked up at my window from the street. For months, that glass had been a witness to love, betrayal, silence, healing. Now it just looked like any other window in a row of 100. Ordinary. I smiled. Because ordinary finally felt good. The next morning, I woke early. 5:46. The kind of early that used to belong to delivery routes and exhaustion. Now it belonged to something else. I brewed coffee, opened the blinds, and watched dawn crawl between buildings. The city stretched awake, lights flickering out one by one, buses hissing at corners, people starting their day. I took a slow sip and caught my reflection faintly in the glass. No ghost this time, just me. Same eyes, different man. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a message I hadn't expected. "Lena, I heard you're seeing someone. I'm glad. Really, you deserve peace." For a long moment, I didn't know how to reply. There wasn't anger left, not even resentment, just distance, like reading a postcard from a country I'd already left behind. I typed back, "Thanks, Lena. I hope you find yours too." And that was it. No bitterness, no punctuation that begged for more. Just closure, quiet and clean. A week later, Maya asked if she could take my picture. "Candid," she said. "Don't pose." We were in my apartment. Afternoon light came in through the window, that same window, soft, golden, bending around dust particles like tiny suns. I was standing by the counter, washing dishes, half smiling at something she said. She clicked the shutter without warning. I heard it, that tiny mechanical sound, and for a split second, I froze. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Because months ago, another lens had caught me in this same spot, in a different life. And that reflection had broken me. This one didn't. Maya showed me the shot later. It wasn't perfect, slightly blurred, my expression mid-thought. But it looked real, alive. "You like it?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, it's honest." She smiled. "Good. That's all that matters." That night, after she left, I turned off the lights and stood by the window one last time. Rain again, the quiet kind, steady, forgiving. The city shimmered. My reflection appeared faintly, layered with the skyline. For the first time, I didn't look like someone standing behind glass. I looked like someone looking through it. I raised my mug, half coffee, half leftover warmth, and whispered something that wasn't really for anyone else. "Here's to what's gone and what's still ahead." The reflection mouthed it back, softer, and for the first time, I smiled at it. I don't know if Lena ever found peace. I don't know if Ethan ever thought about that night again. I don't even know if reflections keep memories, or if glass just forgets the moment light changes. What I do know is this: pain fades when you stop rehearsing it. Healing begins the second you start seeing yourself without the ghosts. And sometimes, the same window that once showed you everything you lost can also show you how much you've learned to live again. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.